Welcome to today's presentation, everybody. I'm going to talk about our productivity tools, the financial programs, so general ledger, accounts receivable, or accounts payable. Just to quickly give you an idea, productivity tools, if you have all of the modules, there's 70 different programs. 27 are the financial programs that I'm going to talk about today. 41 are operations, order entry, purchase order, inventory. And it's probably the case that most people buy productivity tools for the operations programs. And when we did a webinar a couple months ago and I showed some of the key reasons people buy, there were things like update orders, ship orders, extended order entry, extended purchase order entry, complete purchase orders. Those are reasons people buy. But there's a whole set of clients who are more interested in the financial products. And so I wanted to cover those today. When we say productivity, we mean several things: faster data entry, posting, and multi-company maintenance. But what a key concept that I'm going to try and bring out today is a lot of productivity can go down the drain when you make mistakes, and then you have to find them and fix them. So I'm going to emphasize all of the things that we do in our products to avoid mistakes. Here are some of the names to our programs, the first name, and I wanted to extend it. I'm going to show several extended programs, like extended general ledger accounts. That's what I'll start with. And what that means is that takes over a Sage user interface screen. Different than a customization that replaces. We're actually launching the real Sage 300 user interface or UI, and then we're overlaying buttons and behaviors. Most of the second bullet point verbs relate to the operation suite, and then we have inquiry functions that basically let you see more data. So I want to mention briefly that at TaiRox.com, we've got a lot of videos. Here are all of the videos on productivity tools. And of course, many of them go into more detail than I will today. What I'm going to try and emphasize today is how bulletproof they are and the motivation behind several of them. So 27 financial programs, 11 general ledger, 10 accounts receivable, 6 accounts payable. And let's dive right in. These are the general ledger programs. Again, the slide deck I'm sure we'll make available so you can have all of these, see all of these slides once the session is over. A lot of our general ledger tools are about copying accounts to either the same company, but more frequently to multiple companies. So if you have 5 or 10 or 50, we've even seen 400 different Sage 300 companies in an environment. How do you manage those things? And of course, the more companies you have, the more you want your chart of accounts to be the same. So let's look at copying accounts here, and I'm going to show my virtual image here. These are the TaiRox productivity tools on the Sage menu. I'm going to show the general ledger tools first. So extended general ledger accounts. So let's say that I want to add 5 accounts to 10 different companies. How do I do that? Well, the start is you would add it to one company. And I'm going to do that now. Just add, let's say, a bank account. Sheet, cash equivalent, and click Add. So this is all Sage functionality. You can see some of the titles have been changed into buttons. This is a smart finder, and this is copy accounts. So I'm not going to enter 5 new accounts. Let's just pretend that I did. I've entered 1, and now I click on copy accounts. What happens? Well, all of the accounts that I've added or edited are shown in the bottom here. So let's go straight into it. I'm going to say I can select all, select none, or I can cherry pick which one. I'll just pick that one and copy. Oh, okay, I don't want to, let me do something simple first. Okay, so again, this displays all of the Sage 300 companies in the environment, and I've got a target company, like we call it our copy company because we're copying to it. I'm going to copy to it. Again, we make sure you've got sufficient rights. We try and save time by remembering the password for those users who can do this. And then the operation's complete. Well, what does that mean? Well, when we look at the log, you can see that the account that I just added to my core company has now been copied to the other company. Okay, so that's a simple thing. What would happen if we did that again? And imagine again that we're doing this for five accounts for 10 companies. And now if I look at the log, you will see that it already exists and it wasn't inserted. So this is the kind of thing that when I talk about our programs that do lots of things in one step, they always say what they did do and what they didn't do, and if they didn't do something, the reasons why. Let's do something a little bit more complicated now. Let's suppose if I look at sales accounts in Sage 300, there have an account segment, a division segment, and a region segment. This is Sage 300 sample data. So if I want to copy a group of those accounts, I can load them by selecting a range or selecting them all kinds of different ways. And then let's say I want to now copy them to another company, select them all, but I want to substitute. I want to substitute from, let's say, division 100 to division 300. Okay, I guess Sage 300 exists, so I'll do a copy operation here. Okay, yeah, so it does not exist. That's what I thought I would see. So let's say, okay, yeah, it doesn't exist. And that's why we have extended segment codes, because they also copy from company to company. First, let me just put it into the source company, a new segment. And now if I go back to my productivity tools demo and say, okay, now I want to copy, you will see that it doesn't object. And notice, not only can I copy that to a different company, I can copy it to the same company. So if I have 20 groupings for sales analysis, I can make copy that grouping with a new segment, and do that to the same company. Again, if I do copy again, make sure we've got enough rights, we'll do the copy operation, and you'll notice it says errors were reported. If I look at the log, what does that mean? Well, it says the company I'm copying to, the segment doesn't exist. Well, of course, because what I forgot to do was copy the extended segment code that I've just created to my 10 new companies. And I'm just going to copy that to one company now. Again, you'll see that all of the time, whenever we say copying to another company, the user interface always looks the same. And it's always robust. It's got lots of checking. It's got lots of logs. Okay, now I've copied the segment code and I should be able to now copy to another company. It's successfully copied here. I don't have to do that again. If I did, of course, you would know what would happen. It would say it's already inserted. Okay, and now you can see again the log. Now they are inserted. So that gives you an example, reasons that we try and make everything robust. What is this up here? Insert only. Well, a lot of the time I'm adding accounts to 10 different companies, but there is occasions where I might want to update. For example, I might want to update the account descriptions only. Why? Well, maybe a government changes the name of a tax, and maybe you want to reflect that change in your chart of accounts. So that's something you can do. And there are more complicated options to include multi-currency or not. A lot of times it's common, for example, for in North America, for a Canadian company to, after operating for a decade or so, they decide to move into the US and they want to create a US company. Well, they want the same accounts, but the US company has a United States, a dollar functional currency. And so we're allowing that kind of copying. And that's why update is a little bit more complicated than insert. So that, I hope, gives you a bit of a picture of some of the things you can do with extended general ledger accounts. What can't I do? Well, I showed that you can make a substitute, the same substitution into 10 different companies, but what if I had 10 or 50 or 100 companies and I wanted to copy some new accounts, but I wanted every one of those companies to have a different segment value, for example, a different division in each company. That's a common use that we run into for companies that have large general ledgers with lots of segments, or they have lots of companies. And I'm not going to demonstrate that program today, but that's what Copy GL Accounts does. What I am going to do is explain all the things you can do with it. So here, imagine that we have a target company, a source company, a template company, and we want to copy that to 10 different target companies. Well, for every one of the target companies, you can define a range of accounts you want to copy. For every single range, you can say, I want to select only those segments, and I want to substitute only segments. You can have any number of these rules for each account range. You can also say exclude. I want to copy accounts 1,000 to 2,000, but I don't want to copy 1,500 to 1,510 or 1,600 to 1,610. So you can have any number of those rule sets, which as I've described, can be quite comprehensive. Any number of those per company you're copying to. So it's obvious, I suppose, that there's a fair amount of work to get this set up. But once you've set up, when you add 5 accounts or 6 accounts or whatever you're adding to your core template, you can copy to 100 companies with all of the appropriate substitutions and filterings in a single step. So that's what Copy GL Accounts is all about. Let's move on to lookup general ledger accounts. I'm going to see if what's the motivation behind that? So we had a company and they said, we've got 72,000 accounts in our chart of accounts, and we've got between 1 and 8 segments. And what we're finding is our users are entering accounts in project and job costing and in other modules, and they never get the right account because there's 72,000. They always get something that's close but not quite right. So we came up with this solution. So let me just type cost here and click on search. Now, with 72,000 accounts, you're going to get several hundred hits. Again, we're searching the account description, we're searching the account number. If I typed in 1,000, let's say, well, 4,000, let's say, you can see that we would be doing matching lots of different things, the number, but I'm going to go back and say, okay, I'm just interested in cost. Too many results. The answer for all of our finding tools is, if there are too many results, add another word and it will filter down. You'll notice now it's filtering on the division name. And if that's too much, again, I can say, well, the name or part of the name, and it's finding the account that I was looking for. I can now click copy to clipboard. Why are we copying it to the clipboard? Because then it can be pasted in any of the core general ledger programs that ask for an account, any of the third-party programs, whether that's Norming or Auto Simply or Orchid, you just paste it into the account. And so that's how we solved the problem for the company with 72,000 accounts with 1 to 8 segments. Okay, let's move on. What else am I going to show you here? Okay. This is an example of an extremely simple program, accounting status, and it doesn't do much, and people may not buy productivity tools to get this program, but what they'll see is, gee, this can come in very handy. What is this? What we're showing here is all of the actions you might want to take before month end. Well, of course, people will have their own checklists and to-do lists for month end, but of course, what this does is it not only incorporates a to-do list in some sense, it also keeps track of what the data is actually in there. For example, there's 10 incomplete orders that you might want to deal with before month end. If I click on that, you can see that I can drill down and see, well, which orders am I talking about? And that's it. That's the very simple thing that accounting status does. What else have we got here? Tag posted GL transactions. I'm not going to demonstrate this, but what I'll talk about the client who asked us to do this. They had a lot of people doing data entry. They didn't use project and job costing because it was too complicated for them, but they, like a lot of SACE 300 people, they actually use general ledger optional fields to do some kind of categorization for projects. And so the data entry was done, everything was posted, and then a few weeks later, the financial people were looking at the financial statements and saying, gee, that doesn't right. How could we have possibly spent so much on labor or so much on cement for that project? And so what happens then is they can go in and say, oh, this was miscategorized, but you can't in Sage 300, it will not let you edit a posted transaction. However, most of you realize that if it's just a text field, an optional field, you're not affecting any financial data. It's actually quite safe to change the text in a field. And that's what tag posted general ledger transactions is all about. Okay. Some of the other things that we have. I'm not going to demonstrate this, but I'll talk about the client we had. They operated franchises. They had 400 franchises in the hotel business, and they actually kept the books for their franchises. And then what happened is at the end of November, they started getting all of their November data wrapped up for each of the companies, and eventually got to the point where they said, okay, now we want to lock November. We're in December. We don't want anything posted there. And what they realized, they had to log into 400 different companies, change the calendar and log out. Or they could just use the copy calendar operation, very similar to copying account. Same thing for their creating a new year. Eventually they got to the point where they were ready to create a new year for all of their companies, and they didn't want to be logging in and logging out, possibly missing people and our companies, and that's why those programs are there. This is a very simple program in case somebody edited the run date in the wrong fashion, either for a recurring process like bank interest or statements, and now there's no way to reset it other than going into SQL, and that's a bit dangerous, and so we provided a safe way of doing that. And again, a lot of these functions are very, very simple, and not a reason why you'd buy a product, but something that can come in handy if you need it. So here's a summary of the primary benefits for general ledger. You can see I want to keep rolling here. Now let's move on to accounts receivable. I want to leave time at the end in case there's questions. So here are the accounts receivable programs. Let's look at a few. Extended customers. Okay. Let's launch that and see what it looks like. Again, what we're doing is we're calling up the Sage user interface, and then we're changing this title to be a button, and it's a smart finder. You can still use Sage's finder. We've added a copy customer button here, and you can see there's a number of buttons we've added here. First, what is a smart finder? Well, I showed you some of the lookup general ledger, but let's say I typed in wrong. Notice that I'm matching a lot of things. The customer name, the address lines, and in fact, we're matching concatenations of different fields. So a much more comprehensive matching so that we're picking up lots of values. And of course, if you have too many results, you just add another word. But there's something here that you might find odd. We're also searching not just the customer table, we're searching the ship to table. Why is that? Well, most Sage 300 companies will have a few hundred accounts receivable customers that they offer terms and they want to create age trial balance and so on. But they also have not just a few hundred receivables customers, they have cash customers who can walk in, might come in once or twice a year or every year or two and buy one thing and pay cash. And how they cope with that is they create a single customer in Sage 300 called cash, and then they have hundreds or even thousands of ship-to locations, which is in some sense the real customer. And that's why when we had a smart finder for customers, we're not just searching the customer table, we're searching the ship-to table because there are lots of people like that in Sage 300. So that's an example of a smart finder. I'm not going to talk too much more about that. Let's get to a real customer here. A lot of what we call our integration piece, screen integrations. We've changed address from a title to a button. What happens when you click on it? Well, that's the obvious. It calls up Google Maps. This is where my customer is. Simple thing, convenient, can save you some time. Not a reason why you'd buy the product. Similarly, you can launch an email client if they have an email address typed in here, or their website, if they have a website address here. We've also added a couple buttons here. This is for ISO compliance. And you'll notice there's a setting here, use country, state, and province codes. What does that mean? That means if I have something that isn't a real code and I click the save button, it's going to tell me it's not a real code. You can't save that. What I can do though is look up. Again, I can say United States. And I'll just click down United States. Okay. So there's a finder there, and it'll, of course, check the country code and also check the states in the United States. Well, you might say, well, what does that have to do with Asia? Well, of course, the Asian countries can also be proofed. What about Asian countries who have states and provinces? I'm just going to show you that this is all actually not built into the program, but driven by an INI file. So here are all the country codes. When a new country is created, you can just add to this list yourself or eventually update our product because we'll have it in there. And then you'll see for this country, these are what the legitimate states codes are for Canada, for Australia. And if you wanted to add, for example, If Singapore had states, which I don't think it does, you would think you would do that and then list them here. So again, we're trying to solve a problem, but also do it in a generic way. So that's extended customers. You can copy customers, but I'm not going to show that because it's just like copying accounts. Match payments. Apply documents is the reason why people buy productivity tools. How did this arise? Apply documents. So this came originally from a property management company, and what they did was they collected rents, either checks or wire payments, in November for December rent, and then in early December they created invoice. Now they had dozens or hundreds of invoices and dozens or hundreds of payments, and they had to try and match them up. So that's what Apply Documents is about. I've put a range of customers in here, just a couple for the purposes of the demonstration. I click the load button, and now you see for those customers all of the payments that have yet to be applied and all of the invoices or other debit documents that they can be applied against. And again, there's a lot of flexibility. I can double click apply on the top. It applies everything on the bottom. Just reload. Or I can do one at a time on the bottom and it deducts out of the top. Just reset again. Or I can just auto apply and it also auto applies everything. And then when I've got the application the way I want, I then create a batch. It's going to create something, I think. This is sample data. I have to create something with the right thing. Okay, processing complete. So what did it do? It created an AR receipt batch. So that's about saving time when you have lots of payments, lots of invoices, and you have to match them up. Next program, find customer. Okay. Again, when I say some of our stuff is very, very simple, what happens? This may not have happened to you. It happens to me all the time. Somebody wires me money and they say it's for a certain number, but they don't tell me who they are. So I'm just going to create a new receipt batch here. And you notice there's a smart finder here for customers, but we've also added this button here. If I click on it and type in 44, now you can see, these are the customers. This customer has invoice 44. This customer has order 44. Again, a wide search. If you want to narrow it, you add another word. And then I can say, well, actually that's Acme Plumbing. And so I've selected the customer knowing their invoice number that they've told me, but they didn't tell me who they are. Again, a very simple concept here. That's all the program does. Extended customer inquiry. I won't necessarily talk about that. It has the same screen integrations, all the link buttons here, and the main difference about it is it's the same as Sage's customer inquiry. It launches it, it adds these features. It'll also drill down to extended customers. So extended customer inquiry drills down to extended customers. Extended customers inquires from extended customer inquiry. So we're supporting our own integrations as well. Create data zones. This is just a simple way to reverse an invoice debit note or interest document. I think I won't demonstrate today because I'm running a little short on time. Ship to locations. Again, there are people with lots of ship to locations, and if they have multiple companies, they may wish to copy them to another company. They may wish to enforce ISO codes. Why do you enforce ISO codes? I didn't say that before. Well, maybe you're using shipping software and the shipping software only works on the ISO codes. So you make what you want to do is make sure that the data goes in clean. So those are the main functions for extended ship to locations, mass billing. This is, I want to send an invoice. It's the same invoice. This arose in an educational institution, but of course we have other uses as well, where they said, I want an invoice generated for my grade 4 and grade 5 students who are going on a field trip. They all get the same invoice with the same amount, the same description, but I want all 50 different invoices, one for each student, and I can either send it to their phone or print it so that they can take it home. So that's, I want to do the same invoice for multiple people. Update customers. Update orders is one of the primary reasons why people buy productivity tools. Update customers probably isn't, but it's a convenient feature. For example, if you want to update a salesperson code, and we say intelligently. So here I say, okay, my salesperson BB has left. I want to change all of the customers who have commissions for BB. I want to change them to DA. The reason we say intelligently was because there may already be split commissions, and DA already has part of the commission. So you don't want to just change BB entries to DA. You want to merge them together and sum up the amount. So again, what we're trying to do is make sure we're covering all situations, not just the simple request that people asked us, I want to change a salesperson. We tried to think through the whole process. Create a price list. So again, customer says, I want a complete price list showing all of my items, all of my units of measure, and all of my contract pricing. Well, you can spend quite some time assembling that price list for them, or you can just run create price list and it'll create the spreadsheet for you. And you'll notice if the contract pricing is expired or has yet to come into effect, then it will be turned red. So this is just a convenient way when a customer says, I want to see all of my prices, including my contract prices. Mail merge. This is, I want to create, let's say, mailing labels or letters for all of my customers. And so we're integrating with Microsoft Office, either Excel or Word, and we're pushing information from Sage into Excel or Word using a template, and the template is just a standard mail merge template from Microsoft Office. Okay, got just a few minutes left here, so I want to spend a little bit of time on accounts payable. What is extended vendors? Let's say I'm not going to show extended vendors, but as you can see, it's very much like extended customers. It's got a smart finder, it's got the screen integrations, you can copy vendors from company to company, and it doesn't show it here, but I have the setting isn't turned on, but you can also validate country and state province codes as well. And it's very, very similar to extended customers. What's the next accounts payable? Vendor inquiry. Well, it's a mystery why Sage hasn't created vendor inquiry. I guess because we did it, they don't have to now. And this again is just like customer inquiry. So everything that you might want to know about a customer, and you can see there's a lot of different fields here. Again, there's a smart finder. Let's look at a vendor. Here are their purchase orders. Here's the header information. Here's the detail information. The header, the detail, the header, the details. PO receipts, same thing. Here's the PO receipt header. Here are the details. And you can see PO invoices, returns, debit and credit notes, and so on, including the profile and the address. So if you're familiar with customer inquiry, we think you'll be very happy with vendor inquiry. Some people actually say they bought productivity tools for one reason, but when they found vendor inquiry, it saved them so much time. That's the real reason they use it now, more than anything. This is the program they use more than any other. So that's vendor inquiry quickly. You may or may not have run into this. Some people do, where they want to actually create multiple system generated batches. If you don't do this, you don't know what I'm talking about probably. If you do it, and you may have run into the problem, you can only create one of these at a time. So we had a customer say, I actually want to create multiple of these and review them before I post them. So how can I do that? So we created an extended create payment batch. And what this does is it calls Sage's logic. Sage goes through and generated a system generated batch. And then we quickly change the system status to entered status. And then they can do another. So again, a very focused tool for a specific purpose, and not for everybody, but for those people who need it, it saves them a lot of time. Mail merge for accounts payable. Again, you can create mailing labels, you can create letters that are going to every vendor, and again, it integrates with Microsoft Office. So extended remit to locations. Again, this is like extended ship to locations. There's Smart Finder. There's the screen integration buttons. We can copy remit to locations to multiple companies. So again, if you've got a vendor and you're adding a vendor to multiple companies, you may also want to add remit to locations. And I think I've walked through most of the AP programs. There's not that many. Here's a summary of the main benefits for the AP programs. I guess I didn't cover check mailing labels. That just prints labels without using mail merge. It just uses simple logic. So those are the AP programs. And with that, I'd like to, I guess I still have a little bit of time for questions.